Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Advice and Best Practices on Delivering Strategic Advisory Services. First and foremost, we hope that you and your loved ones are happy, healthy, and staying safe. For today's webinar, Wolters, Kluwer, Lisa Erickson, and Mark McAndrew are joined by their customers, Jim Toto, partner at Sachs LLP, Michelle Ryan, partner at Adams Brown, and Michelle Walsh, Chief Operating Officer at Edelstein & Company, as they share their best practices for delivering strategic advisory services and the benefits it can bring to your firm. Wolters Kluwer CCH is registered with NASPA as a sponsor of continuing professional education on the National Registry of CPE sponsors. As such, we are excited to offer one CPE credit for today's webinar. A total of 4 polls will be conducted throughout the presentation, and you'll need to participate in 3 of them in order to receive your CPE credit. If you experience any technical difficulties when trying to submit your poll response, please make sure you let us know in the questions pane. This way we can record your answer manually. Your certificate will be sent to the email you used to register for the webinar within 5 business days after the session. If you do not receive your certificate, please email us at taana-webinars@wolterskluwer.com. Please note, CPE is not available in viewing the on-demand version of this webinar. You will have the opportunity to submit questions by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we will be sure to follow up afterwards. You will also have the opportunity to complete a survey about the webinar, our content, learning objectives, and more at the end of the presentation. This survey will also be sent to you in a follow-up email. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in that survey so that we can continue to deliver meaningful content in future presentations. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Lisa Erickson.
Hello, my name is Lisa Erickson. I am the Manager of Technology Product Management here at Wolters Kluwer. We're going to go ahead and in a bit have our panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to go over some trends in technology. Our experts are going to share their best practices for providing advisory services and share their experiences with what has worked with their firms and what has not. And then at the end, we'll get into some questions and answers as well. So I'd like to introduce our own Mark McAndrew, who is with Wolters Kluwer. He is the Director of Product Management. Mark, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm excited for today's session. The individuals that have joined our panel are folks that I have worked with for perhaps more than a decade, either directly together or as part of a vendor arrangement from a service provider standpoint. My role here at Wolters Kluwer is around the firm management product sets. So I work directly with Lisa and a quality team that reports through to her, focusing on the products that help your firm achieve success across service lines, be it with workflow or productivity tools, document management systems, calendaring products, portal products. Ultimately, my focus is to help you achieve a good customer success outcome for how you engage your internal constituents and your customers. So I think today we're going to hear some exciting things from a number of really quality individuals that have assembled today. And with that said, I'd like to first introduce one of those folks now, Jim Toto. Jim?
Good day, everybody. My name is Jim Toto. I'm a tax partner at Sachs LLP, based out of Parsippany, New Jersey. I have spent the last part of 30 years in public accounting, mostly servicing high net worth individuals and their families, and also with their related businesses. I've also done a lot with corporate executives over the years. In my time, I've certainly seen a shift from the importance of compliance services to advisory services. And I'm looking forward to being part of this team. Michelle?
Hey everyone, Michelle Ryan. I'm a partner at Adams Brown. We're a regional accounting firm I'm actually located in our Kansas City office. We have about 280 individuals firm-wide and growing, 15 locations across mostly Kansas, but reaching out into Arkansas as well. So certainly a growing firm with a little different logistic than some firms of our size, just because of the multi-locations and in some rural areas as well. I started out in tax and did audit and did Friday fire drills, as we called them at the time, did a little payroll bookkeeping, but now I lead our accounting and advisory service line for the firm, which sometimes is best described as everything that is not tax, not audit, not wealth management, and not cyber, that gets pulled into a different area. So payroll, bookkeeping, CAS, controller services, and CFO and advisory level services for our firm. So we started our CAS journey about 10 years ago, and just really excited to be on this call. I'm excited to see where the industry has brought us to this point and where we're going in the future. So glad to be on this call. Michelle Walsh.
Hey everybody, Michelle Walsh. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Edelstein & Company. We're a Boston-based regional firm. We primarily focus in audit as well as tax, but we also have a healthcare consulting group as well as a valuation team and a growing advisory services. I also grew up in public accounting. Took a little bit of a turn into the direction of servicing our clients with some of the folks that are on this call, and have been peers with some other folks for quite a bit of time, and find myself at Edelstein today really applying my background and looking for efficiencies to help the firm grow, leveraging both the technology as well as process, and leveraging our people to the greatest capacity. And looking forward to being a part of the discussion with all of you today.
Well, thank you, all of our panelists, for joining us today. I really appreciate this. So in case if you missed it, we've had some previous webinars where we had industry experts share their experiences of providing advisory services. Our first webinar was called 3 Steps Your Firm Can Take to Develop an Advisory Service Business Model. That was with myself and Ernie Villani from Boulder Valley CPAs. And some of the key takeaways from that particular webinar was that, the first thing is you want to make sure you develop an advisory service model. And then as you look at transitioning clients over, identify those clients that will be good candidates to move over, and then do it in a phased approach. We also had a webinar with Jason Cadeau, Ray Barlow, and Mark McAndrew, and that was focused on how to choose technology that will help create capacity for advisory services. And they shared some great insight about different advisory tools that can be used to create that capacity to focus on those advisory services, such as workflow solutions, utilizing CCH Access IQ, and then outsourcing as well. So at the end, we'll have a QR code that you can scan to access these webinars, and then you'll be able to also access the webinar from today's session. There's also another upcoming session. We'll get to that at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alyssa for a polling question.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to launch our first polling question, which is, what is your primary line of business? As a reminder, you'll need to complete 3 of the 4 polling questions in order to be able to receive your CPE. We'll give everyone just a couple minutes. All right, just a couple more seconds and we're going to close out the poll. Okay, we're going to close it and share the results. And I will turn it back over to you, Lisa.
Great, thank you, Alyssa. So I wanted to go over some of the trends that are going on out there in the accounting industry. We've seen a lot of changes, especially lately with the pandemic, and we really saw in a rapid, really a transmission, really with firms moving from, not necessarily let me rephrase this. They had a digital transformation basically throughout the years. They basically moved from desktop applications to cloud-based applications because they had staff, basically located all throughout the nation. With the pandemic, that allowed them to really accelerate that adoption of moving to the cloud. Also, we've seen in the industry just less accountants going into the accounting industry. And so they have to look at technology. What technology can be used to help with some of those items that staff would use to take care of, looking at automation, using artificial intelligence, using data analytics, and also blockchain as well. We hear about the great resignation out there, of course, with the pandemic. And firms have to take a look at what can they do to retain and attract talent? What can they do to really improve upon employee engagement out there? According to the Accounting Today survey here results, we had asked firms which tactics they are using to grow their business. One of those top tactics that they're following is adding or updating technology, as we see here, and that was at 52% as well. So as you're looking at developing an advisory service model, take a look at what technology can help you really get to those goals as well. And our panel of experts will be sharing their insight there as well. According to Spotlight reporting, clients are in need of the advisory services year-round. 80% of the respondents indicated that either they plan on starting to use and offer advisory services or plan to enhance their advisory services. 70% said that they already perform mentoring, forecasting, or other services. 60% identified as a hybrid firm offering both advisory and compliance services. And 25% identified as a traditional firm offering only tax compliance. So for these particular firms, there's a lot of opportunity for them to provide those proactive advisory services. And 10% indicated that there are roadblocks preventing them from offering advisory services. What we'll be talking about today will help firms overcome those obstacles. Melissa, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to you for another polling question.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to launch the second polling question. It'll be, what steps has your firm taken to move towards advisory services? We've already started making changes. We're thinking about introducing new services. We're implementing our new business model within 6 months. We've finalized our pricing and model, but we'll be implementing within the next 1 to 3 years, or we have made no changes to our business model. This is our second polling question of 4, and you'll need to participate in 3 of them in order to receive your CPE. We'll give everyone just about 15 more seconds to complete the polling question. Just a couple more seconds, and then we're going to close out the poll, and I'll pass it over to our panelists to see the results. Looks like we have some ties or some close numbers here as we begin to close this out. So let me close out and share the results, and I'll pass it over to Lisa and the rest of the panel to share their thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alyssa. So one of the best practices for providing advisory services is building a business model. So I like to ask our panel of experts some questions around that. I'm going to start with Jim. What led to your firm shifting its business model to offering advisory services?
Yeah, sure. As we've seen over time, the margins on traditional compliance services have been shrinking, audits and tax returns mostly. Plus, with the increased costs of delivery, it's led us to look to really provide more services to clients, and quite frankly, they're services that they want. We've always been their trusted advisor to do their tax returns or their audits. So we're the natural people to help them with, with respect to just general business advice, and that obviously could be pretty broad in nature. There's the obvious traditional consulting services, but on the tax side, which is where I operate, we've done things like cost segregation and some transfer pricing, international type services, and these are the advisory services that a lot of these clients want. I can't really speak to it on the audit side as much, but and as we found the clients like these services and were willing to pay for these services, we've tried to expand that end of the practice more and more. Obviously, look, compliance is what we do and what we've always done, especially someone like me that's been around so long. But most firms, the mid-sized firms, find it's necessary to provide these other services, and that's what we've done.
Well, thank you, Jim. Michelle, Ryan, I have the same question for you.
Yeah, well, much like Jim and his experience with his firm, we certainly had much of the same, where tax and audit were becoming more commoditized, thinner margins, but also much like him, the market was telling us that our clients wanted these services. And I always joke that how it evolved from our firm, we had a bill code, so all of us are posting time to a random bill code called management services. And today we laugh about it as, I refer to it as the random acts of consulting that we were doing across the firm. And I said, at the time we were probably doing 100 cash flow forecasts and, meeting with clients on a quarterly basis. We just weren't organized as a firm to say, well, the service offering is a cash flow forecast or a budget. And really what focusing on advisory and that business model and formally calling it something gave us structure to make our team more efficient, more effective, our quality better, because we weren't starting from a blank Excel spreadsheet to build a cash flow 100 times, right? We created a template and used it 100 times. So I think that our journey was much the same. We evolved out of a very traditional accounting firm, which gave us a great client base from which to grow from, which is a little bit different than the standalone CAS firms that just start from nothing and start in that outsourced controller space.
Well, thank you, Michelle, Ryan, and Michelle Walsh. Same question for you, firm.
Yeah, I think that I would echo a lot of what Michelle Ryan just said. I think part of our growth has really been organic in the sense that we have a lot of the information, as Jim said, that as clients are going through and having transactions or making business decisions, they're coming to us and then finding that we're able to, assist them, or that we have all the tools and the knowledge to be able to accelerate and partner with them. So some degree, we have a pretty significant healthcare practice that, those folks where we are doing outsourced CFO type work, there is just a need, and they come to us as, the trusted advisor, and then say, oh, actually, you guys can do this work for me. You have that information available, and actually we are more accelerated. I think, organically you find that because that's not the compliance type work, as Jim said, the margins on this type of work in an M&A type transaction, they tend to be, really quick, need this stuff right now, or they're, more complex. We're also finding that just from a profitability standpoint, we can really pick up, from a revenue standpoint. And then lastly, I think that we're finding the staff really enjoy working on this. Some of the day in and day out, the data entry or the work from a compliance perspective can become, a little bit monotonous, but I think they're really enjoying the client relationship standpoint as they see that what we're doing for them on a regular basis can really help drive their growth and help support their business. So we've really found that to be really rewarding for the staff as well.
That is wonderful to hear. Thank you for that insight. Mark, I'd like to get your insight on all of this.
Sure. Coming from kind of a different perspective as far as leading into a shift in a business model, our focus has been more around how to support firms that are interested in aligning their services to a model like this. So when we think about what we had done with Expatax, our outsourcing arm, it was complementing some of the service requirements of a CPA firm for the purpose of getting in front of the monotonous work, as Michelle Walsh kind of termed some of that to be, and provide some hands, some arms to some of the back office accounting opportunity, or even looking at how tax preparation services might create capacity for other individuals to focus on a different aspect of what their career trajectory looked at. So I think where we think about building a business model, a component of that should be what technology partners are you going to select, or what specific products are you going to bring into your organization that complement your talent and the direction you're trying to take your business.
Well, thank you, Mark. All right. Michelle Ryan, this question is going to go to you. First, what steps did your firm take to develop an advisory service business model?
Sure. So first, I think first was identifying that there was a need and that we had really interest from the client side. So there was a client base asking for the service, but also a leader that wanted to lead that and move it forward. And I will say that we started with a part-time leader. So our firm at the time was smaller, not willing to make as big of an investment. And so we did start with more of a part-time leader. It was my second job at the time, in addition to the tax and audit and all the other things that we were doing. But really made an investment in when we made the shift to a full-time leader and really invested in that, dedicated that capacity and that time is when we really started to accelerate the process going forward. But once we did that, really getting a business plan in place, ensuring that our board, our executive team, our management team were on board with the direction that we were going, and always have had that support from those individuals and those leaders within the firm as well to move it forward. But I would say some of the things that we did most recently, our firm did move to more of a service line and industry-based model. So our core service lines of tax audit, advisory, and wealth management cross over our industries of ag, construction, healthcare. What we did from a service line standpoint, once we had the business model, is we gave our industry teams, we gave our firm basically the org structure and the org chart to live within. So really taking steps to formalize what those job descriptions are, what the hierarchy looks like, what are the services that are in that space? We're payroll, we're CAS, we're outsourced controller, or we're advisory. So, really defining the spaces and drawing some kind of hard lines around them, because if you're just getting started in the CAS journey, and it looked like we had a lot of tax people on this, it takes a year to, what is CAS? What does CAS stand for? What do you do again? It just takes some time to communicate what that is, what the goal is, how that service model is differentiated from maybe a more traditional bookkeeping right up after the fact service offering. So that's how we got started.
Michelle Walsh, same question.
I think we took a similar approach. Again, it really started on the CAS side with a client need, and especially with resource constraints. I think our clients have been feeling the same pain that we have been feeling and saying, hey, do you have anybody who can do this work? Similarly, it fell under, a partner really as a second job. And then, it evolved to the point that we realized we really need somebody to come in and be doing this and waking up every day and just be focusing on that. We're really finding now as we're evolving that it's important for us to be creating more standardization, to really set those expectations. As Michelle Ryan mentioned, what does X package include, or what are their services? There's a real opportunity for scope creep on a number of these things that, you have the time and attention of a person who can help support a client. And then we, can quickly find that we're doing a lot more than we're being paid for. So I think we have more recently assessed what we're looking at from standardization, what the deliverables are, and then what the pricing for that looks like. There was a significant level of education, both internally as well as externally. One internally for the rest of our partner group to really understand, what does our client accounting services look like, and, how do they bring that to their clients? I've really seen an interesting evolution that when somebody gets it, they get it because the business really starts flowing. And then when they don't get it, it's kind of like, oh, I don't have any clients that need that. So where we see and we've heard in the industry, the growth in this space really happens quickly. It really is, once it takes off, it takes off. I think more broadly speaking to more broader advisory services, I think what we have found is that we're trying to do more cross communication within our firm to make sure that we're doing good cross-selling and identifying opportunities where we potentially have a tax return, but we have the ability to further service that client. So that has been a big part of us to, really start to develop the model. I think that some folks have just been really in, tunnel vision on what they're working on and what we deliver for that client. But as we give them more education and we have more cross-departmental conversations, we're seeing that there's a greater opportunity to continue to, grow our advisory practice.
Thank you, Michelle Walsh. And Jim, same question.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll approach this more from the tax side. We quickly abandoned the notion that the tax partner is the person in the office behind a stack of books. And we really encouraged tax partners and all partners really to go out and see their clients, to be active in the marketplace, spend time with them, talk to them, find out, what keeps them up at night, and then really start to develop, the advisory services based on those needs. We did some client surveys, and we would really make sure the partners then would pursue these areas, that were of particular interest to them as well. And then finally, at some point, we did need to do some recruiting, for folks that have some expertise in these disciplines of state and local and tax controversy, transactions, various things like that. So it was really a multi-step approach, and it, again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's certainly something that takes a little bit of time. But, again, looking at what's happened to the industry over the years, it was something that was well worth it.
Well, thank you, Jim. And Mark, I'm sure you have a different perspective on this. Did you have anything to add?
Sure, just some small items. So I think Michelle Ryan mentioned earlier, kind of, are you all in or are you all out, or nights and weekends approach to kind of building the service or building the model. That same concept on the technology side. When we think about the leadership that was brought in to help evolve our Expat organization, and were we all in, or was it just tertiary part of our business? We were all in. When we think about workflow solutions, does that workflow process accentuate advisory business process? Is it more that does go beyond more than just tax? and making sure that we focus to features that folks like the Michelles and Jim here and their firms would need. So when we think about our evolution of building a business model to support firms such as the three today and the others out there, we really focused on what does that outsourcing space need from us? What do our workflow and technology tools need to really for them? And how do we bring them together? So the investment in connecting and integrating our workflow and productivity platforms with our outsourcing solutions was really kind of that first step, and then continuing to evolve that with appropriate leadership and to listen to experts like those who are here today.
Great insights. Thank you, Mark. So Michelle Walsh, this question is going to go to you first. What types of advisory services does your firm offer?
So as I mentioned before, a lot of our focus right now is with client accounting services. So we are doing the various bookkeeping, outsourced CFO, really just general advisory. The M&A type work tends to be a space that we're seeing, whether it's a true transaction or if it's just starting to look at potentials. We're finding that there's those are the big areas, but I laughed at Michelle's comment regarding sort of that management services, because there is in that advisory bucket a very broad level that you can't necessarily say it's a one size fits all. Obviously, as we've just gone through the pandemic and we've seen so many new introductions of different things that clients need our help with in terms of looking at, new codes and things like that, we get a little bit deeper based on what the environment or, what the IRS is pushing out to us. But that's kind of the general bucket. I think that at the high level, it is really the CAS work. And then we are starting to dig a little bit deeper into sort of that management services code to say, are we seeing themes, and do we have an ability to actually put together a menu of services so that we're not constantly, building from the ground up on a number of these different things, but we might actually see that there's just a handful of areas that we want to get deep into, and then really start to build out and standardize what exactly our deliverables, what our pricing would look like, and then get a little bit deeper with having subject matter experts to support those areas.
Jim, same question for you.
Yeah, so the firm offers a full suite of advisory type services, from transaction advisory, wealth management, cryptocurrency advisory services is a newer area. We consult on HR and IT, and the traditional CAS outsourced CFO type services. In addition, we have particular strength in certain industries with respect to advisory services, cannabis, construction, not-for-profit, private clients, and wealth management and things like that. So we're always looking to expand those services and find new areas of need for our clients. But those really are the core advisory services that we're looking at right now. Obviously, the firm is growing, and as we grow, we will continue to have more offerings in that vein.
And Michelle Ryan, same question.
Yeah, so we're much the same with a heavy focus. Michelle Walsh, you mentioned that on it, you got to foundationally build the services before you can grow the high level in-depth niche services. And I think Jim, you alluded to that as well. So our advisory services, and our advisory services also, like you said, holistically crossover. I mean, you have tax advisory, you have audit advisory, you have accounting advisory, and so we live in a lot of those advisory spaces, and as a firm, we developed a 360 model to kind of integrate those across the firm, cross-functionally between our service teams. But our services, our advisory services, just because of the nature of how we've grown out of the traditional accounting firm, how we've grown out of more traditional bookkeeping and grown into a controller role, and I would say a really strong strategic controller role. Our advisory services have been really a little more general in nature that can service across many industries, with the idea that our next iteration, as our industry niches become more and more developed, we'll start to offer those more niche consulting areas. Jim, you mentioned like construction advisory, because we'll have enough critical mass to really focus on those, hire the skill set, the resources in there. So our advisory services as they sit today are the more general, quarterly meetings, monthly meetings, cash flow planning, strategic controllership. We did stand up a very successful and large ERTC division as well. And so over the last two years with PPP loans and then the ERTC thereafter, that our advisory space kind of becomes a little bit of an entrepreneurial space that says if the market says there's an opportunity and we have a leader that wants to lead it, standardize it, and grow it for the firm, we use that as our platform as well for advisory services.
Mark, from the outsourcing perspective.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We have a couple of areas. Well, you wouldn't think of us as a CPA firm provider per se. We do staff augmentation. So when you start thinking about extending staff for your CPA firms so that you can provide services, the outsourcing angle is certainly in play. But where we also have to pay attention and we have to make sure that we're not leaving this unserviced is when we think about those of you who provide tax advisory services or going from tax prep to tax advisory, that we start to push or continue to develop products that accentuate the needs there. So we focus on a product like CCH Access IQ, which is really intended to help your teams identify impact and change in legislation that might then be worth bringing to your customers to engage them, whether it's those niche markets where you need some extra research beyond the typical channels, or it's connecting that into your collaboration opportunities so that you can now engage with those customers that are impacted by the advice that you can provide them. Our goal is to make sure that the model you build and the talent you have an opportunity to directly engage your customer base as appropriately as possible. So when we think about advisory services we offer, it's really services we offer you as CPAs so that you can then do what you do best.
Okay, next question. Jim, we'll start with you. What resources did you leverage to ensure success when deploying your advisory service business model?
Yeah, I mean, primarily it's people and technology. So an example with people is the firm brought in a new head of marketing and business development because the firm was growing from a much smaller firm to what's now would be considered a mid-sized firm. And in doing that, we needed a little bit more forward thinking, a little bit new perspective. So the firm did invest in a lot of people. The firm has a very young executive board that's also very forward thinking. So the investments in people and people that really understand where the industry is going is very important. And then obviously technology plays a big part in this. And while technology certainly could be looked at in more than one way, you look at technology like AutoFlow that could streamline the compliance process and allow less time, and if you're more efficient in the compliance area, you could dedicate more resources to the advisory. And there are technologies in the advisory space as well, but just improving the firm's technology across the board was a significant priority in this journey.
Thank you, Jim. Michelle Ryan, same question.
Yeah, I like Jim's theme of people and technology. Those are probably the absolute two most important things to move forward in this space. And I will say that finding that community of people, when I started this kind of journey 10 years ago, that this community did not exist in as it does today. And so there's certainly a lot more resources, but what do they say? Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and ask lots of questions and learn from them. And I mean, that was the single best thing I ever did, was find people, start asking questions and ask more questions, ask them what they did, you know, to really move it forward. And I think that it starts to give you a perspective around a lot of people's journeys in this space are different, and a lot of the service offerings are different. And, you know, even some of the structures with, you know, how they operate within a traditional accounting firm, or how we were a standalone firm and grew from that. Everybody has a little bit of a different journey, but if you take all that information and bring it back to you and your firm and apply it to, you know, how does this best fit in our model, and how do I think that this is, you know, going to be most successful within our firm, that was certainly helpful to me. And I found those people through, I mean, CPA.com, digital CPA is certainly a community, vendors such as CCH, XEM at the time, all those, BotKeeper, I mean, there's QuickBooks, Xero, all the people, right? Bill.com, there's tons of people that I can think of that have been along for this journey, and just asking them questions about, you know, what are your small firms doing? What are your large firms doing? What are they doing best? What are, you know, what can I learn from them along the way? So I would say that people piece. And then really from a technology standpoint, I think it's just choosing something, make an educated decision, choose something, and then get going, right? You can aim forever and never choose a solution to move forward, or you can, you know, aim, shoot, you know, aim, fire a little bit faster. And so, I mean, there's so many choices in the market. So choosing something and really pulling your colleagues around, you know, technology platforms that they're using and why they like them, I think can help really guide you in that direction for how to get started. And maybe that's the quick start version there. So.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle Walsh, same question.
I echo both Michelle and Jim, you know, on the people and the technology. We have certainly leveraged from the technology standpoint, you know, just using workflow as well as using outsource. You know, I think to some degree, you know, when our team was looking at workflow, they initially said, oh, that's not something that we can use. But where we had either quarterly or monthly deliverables back to a client, we really felt that it helped from a process standpoint to just create that standardization, again, to be able to have more efficiency, and then also make sure that from a client service perspective, you know, nothing's getting lost, nothing's being missed, and that we're maintaining the highest level of quality. It's also helping us to, again, where we have those one-off deliverables or those one-off projects, to really have a single source of truth of what are the things that we have delivered out, that if we are touching the same thing again, we're, you know, can go back and really leverage that. So I would expand on that to just say, I guess the other category that I would add is the process, you know, the people, the process, and the technology, to truly say that we are making sure that we're using the technology, but we're being smart about it. On the people side, you know, one thing that we have just recently done is we've joined the BDO Alliance. And I think, as Michelle had said, really surrounding yourself with people who understand this, leveraging, you know, where their best practices. That has helped us in the sense that if there is some subject matter expertise that we don't necessarily have in-house, you know, that we are able to leverage being a part of that alliance to be able to say, you know, there might be a resource that we can tap into, and then, you know, be able to really business or share resources from that standpoint. So I think that, you know, the technology, we haven't necessarily added anything, but the big add is certainly with the alliance to help continue to support the growth of the firm.
Mark, what perspective do you have on this topic?
It's funny, I was going to kind of dive into the same thing Michelle Walsh just did, that the process enables the technology for the people, right? So when we think about resources that we've leveraged, when XCM and Expetex were acquired by CCH a couple years back, we really put the full force of CCH behind integrating those into the overall platform, right? So we start thinking about leveraging the tax teams, the audit teams, the firm management teams, our platform teams, ultimately for the purpose of creating a service delivery model for our firms to take advantage of and to do so effectively. I'd love to talk in depth on how client collaboration and workflow come together from the process side, or how IQ and client collaboration come together to accentuate an engagement that you deliver to your customers. We can do so at a later time, but when you think about resourcing here, it's just connecting the various technology components we have to offer in a way that aligns with what our firms need.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alyssa for a polling question.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to launch our third polling question, and it is, what advancements in technology has your firm taken? We've started introducing new tools and technology. We're thinking about introducing. We are implementing within the next 6 months. We will begin to implement within the next 1 to 2 years, or we've made no advancements in technology. And this is polling question 3 of 4. You'll have to participate in 3 of them in order to receive your CPE. We'll give everyone just about 5 more seconds, but it's clear that we have a clear front runner here with about 60% of you starting to introduce new tools and technology. So that's great, and hopefully the insights from the help you with that. All right, looks like we have everyone completed, so I will close and give a quick share and turn it over to you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go ahead and ask our panel of experts some questions around tools and technology. So we will go ahead and start with Michelle Ryan. What types of technology has your firm embraced to create capacity for advisory services?
So really from our standpoint, I would say just the cloud-based solutions are really were really our starting point, and much like Mark, Michelle, you guys, everyone has talked about automating that data entry and that volume-based that volume of data we work with every single day has been really important for us foundationally to be able to add that advisory as well. Kind of like Jim said, the more efficient I can get on the compliance side and getting that data in there and getting good data in there, I can start advising more, right? And it may not be, maybe it's 10% of the time as a starting, but then it's 20, and then it's 30, and then all of a sudden you're stacking on, hey, let's do some quarterly planning meetings, or, you know, let's take a different approach to how we're working with our clients. So I would say that really that cloud-based solution, and then defining that tech stack has really, those were kind of our core technologies. We know also foundationally we've been really focused on volume management from our standpoint, just because of we have a large volume tax base that we grew from. And so we've been really focused there. At some point, leveraging more of the financial reporting, automating add-on tech solutions on the back side, or the client delivery, the reporting, the deliverable side is going to be really our next iteration. But right now we've been really focused on consolidating payroll platforms, AP, accounting softwares, just trying to streamline and get more critical mass, less platforms in some of those spaces to start.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Michelle Walsh, same question.
So we have been heavily focused on wherever we can, I think to the same point as Michelle Ryan, just from wherever we can utilize automation or to just make things quicker, and anything that is, you know, a redundant, repetitive task. You know, we are using the CCH scan We're looking to implement the auto flow right now. We're also using outsourcing. So again, where we have that high volume, that compression of work, being able to actually say, okay, how can we move through this just to create capacity? We can't keep people just constantly busy. Otherwise, with, obviously the staff constraints that we're seeing right now, to that end, really helping to make sure that we don't have any bottlenecks with any specific resources. We do use the scheduler modular within the XEM, and that also helps us to just make sure that the workloads are, a bit more even. People are doing the right level of work. As we have started to introduce more into the advisory services, we're starting to build out actually the skill sets within Access Workflow, so that we, can actually see, okay, who's worked on something, where's their subject matter expertise, where can we leverage somebody, and making sure that that's another tool. Lastly, I would say is just really being aware of the quality of our data. We're really trying to be more analytical, whether it's leveraging using Power BI to just be analyzing data, but to truly be able to take the data that we have.
I think we just lost Michelle's audio. Are you back, Michelle? Give it one more try. She'll be joining.
Yes, sure. Okay, we'll move on to Jim.
Sure, thanks. So like both Michelle said, we've done a lot of the same things, but what I'll stress is the importance of outsourcing and automation. So we've been using the Expatax platform for many years. And I think the only thing I'll add is, and just in the interest of brevity, is e-signature services has also helped for things like engagement letters and 8879 forms. It's certainly taken a large burden off of the administrative staff. So that's been an important technologies that we've implemented to create capacity.
Mark, I know you touched upon this a bit, but anything else to add about the technology that Wolters Kluwer offers?
I had a couple things, and I agree with Jim. We're kind of running short on time. There's just so much to talk about. But from Wolters Kluwer's standpoint, that scan and auto flow technology that Michelle had mentioned, I think Jim and Michelle Ryan had mentioned as well. We're focused on artificial intelligence, making sure that the integrations we have between workflow and outsourcing and resource allocation for both internal staff or externally through outsourcing all tie together nicely. I love Michelle Walsh's note about the calendar scheduling module that's integrated to workflow and the skills inventory that provides. Our goal when we think about technology is to get people in the right place to do the right things for their firms. So the automation of scheduling against what's being done in workflow, against what's available to work on based on collaboration, with the opportunity to automate, to put some e-signature components into that business process from the front end or the back to help automate the delivery of tax returns. Anything we can do from a technology standpoint that will alleviate some of the waste in process that all of you might have people doing, so they can point their arrows in another direction to provide a higher value service for your customer base. Those are the areas where we're really embracing and focusing our technology infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Michelle Walsh, do we have you back?
I believe I'm back. Apologies for that.
Next question for you then. We'll start with you. How do you deliver advisory services to your clients to communicate the value?
One of the things that we're doing right now is we are seeing some trends around clients inquiring with us about different deliverables or things that they are looking for our expertise on. So we have recently found, especially with the challenges related to recruiting, we've started out with a in-person client service event where we are just bringing in our top 45 clients, and we're actually the first event is just a roundtable fireside chat related to HR and recruiting. And within that series, we're going to have an IT segment. We're going to have, a tax trends segment as well. So really to make sure that we're helping clients to see that we do go beyond just the numbers, and that we are here to help them beyond just what their standard deliverable is. We're also having an offsite coming up with our partner team to be able to sit down and to look at where we have those opportunities and what clients that we've tapped into to be able to deliver more than one deliverable, and say, okay, how can we expand our services, and making sure that we're giving them the tools and the language that when they're reaching out and having those touch points with their clients, that they know how to segue into it, not for a hard sell, but to really be able to show the value. So really there's one that's at a global feel, and then I would say the second approach is really more at that individual relationship level.
Thank you, Michelle. Jim, same question.
Yeah, I don't think this is a one size fits all answer. A lot of this depends on the relationships that the various partners have with the various clients. But certainly, whenever there's a delivery, there's always an in-depth discussion about the value proposition, and that's really done throughout the engagement. So whether that's when it's being scoped, in the middle of delivery, or at the end, really, I would say in this regard, the frequency and quality of the communication is the most important part.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Michelle, Ryan, same question.
Yeah, I think I echo what Jim said completely. It's usually just getting started, understanding what their challenges are, helping them define what their challenges and or goals or solutions to help solve those, and then really developing that cadence to meet with clients on a periodic basis. And sometimes it's just, let's get started. Let's start with quarterly, and then you find that, hey, we need to deliver this monthly, and it goes from a quarterly 1 hour to a monthly 1 hour, and then all of a sudden they're engaging you to do other things. So the delivery model is hard to standardize in a lot of ways. I mean, certainly there's reporting KPI functions that can be standardized, but I think the delivery, the communication kind of depends on the client, the service, and what their needs are and what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve.
All right, we just have a few minutes left. I just wanted to check with our panelists if you have any final thoughts before we close.
Well, let me jump in first just to say thank you to Michelle, Jim, and to you as well, Lisa. This conversation quickly. We'll be doing more of this at the user conference. So if this conversation wants to continue, we have an opportunity to continue that with any of you as well as the audience. But just thank you for joining and providing your insights.
Thank you for having us. It was a great experience. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I was actually writing some notes down in the background, so I appreciate knowing others in the space, and I hope that everyone on the call today, the presentation certainly received at least a few nuggets, and certainly find those resources to reach out to continue to keep you moving along on your journey, wherever you might be on that journey of implementing advisory.
And if anybody would like to reach out, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if there's resources that I may have mentioned that you're interested in more information, please feel free to connect on LinkedIn, or feel free to reach out to Alyssa to make a connection.
All right, well, as mentioned, this is the QR code I was telling you about earlier. You can go ahead and scan this. This will give you access to the webinars. Those are on demand, and then there'll be access to today's webinar as well. You can look back at the recording. And then there's an upcoming session on November 14th as well. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Alyssa for our final polling question.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to launch the final polling question, and it is, would you like to learn more about the technology Wolters Kluwer has to enable advisory services? Yes, I'd like to learn more for purchase decisions in the next 12 months, or I'd like to learn more to prepare for future decisions. I'm not considering new technology, but like to improve workflows. Or if you only attended for CPE, please just select that button. We'll give everyone a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds to complete this final polling question. As a reminder, you needed to complete 3 in order to receive your CPE. And just about 10 more seconds. And as the panelists mentioned, and Lisa and Mark, thank you for joining us today. If you did have any questions or if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, it's in the handout section of the control panel, but if you'd like a recording, please email taana-webinars@wolterskluwer.com and I'd be happy to provide that to you. I'm going to close this out and I'll turn it over. Any closing remarks, or I will close this out for us today. Lisa?
All right. Well, thank you again for our panel of experts for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us and sharing your insight. And then, of course, all of our audience for joining us today as well. As mentioned, if you have any other questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us. Also, if you are interested in learning more about our technology, you can go ahead and scan this QR code here. And then here is our contact information if you'd like to reach out to myself, Mark, or Alyssa.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.